Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Wrestling Republic podcast, the home of unbiased opinions, reports, and debates in the wrestling community. As always, I am joined by former student of Finn Balor, Karl Kinahan. How are you today, Karl?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm great. We've got a lot to get into today. Of course, WWE had the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view a couple of days ago. Mixed reviews for that. But the first thing I want to talk about today is a brand new report from Fightful Select this afternoon that at least two surprises are planned for Slammiversary, with an outside name making their way into the company, who has got a contract, who's under contract elsewhere, as well as one recent WWE release. Fightful were also told that fans should expect a quote-unquote reinvigoration to the Knockouts division in July. So I think this is fairly obvious straight off the bat that Chelsea Green is going to be one of these names, one of the names out of the two in here. It's quite obvious anyway because, of course, her I don't know if they're married, but her partner Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, he's of course in Impact Wrestling already. But who do you think the name elsewhere could be?
It's definitely an AEW star, I believe. But I don't know, maybe someone for the X division from AEW. But I don't know. It's really surprising about the other name from another company. The AEW is just one that makes sense as to have a partnership going at the moment. But who it could be, I'm not too sure. It could even be possibly Britt Baker, just to get more eyes on the AEW's women division, possibly.
I could definitely see, Britt Baker, because she's the champion, I'm not sure about it. Perhaps somebody a bit lower down, such as what I was thinking was perhaps the Bunny, Ali, of course, who was a huge star in Impact before going across to AEW. But if I had to bet, my guess here would actually be Mickie James. And the reason for that is, of course, she's currently under contract with the NWA. So it's not like, she is under contract with another promotion. And of course, NWA have that partnership with with AEW. So it wouldn't be a complete shock, in my opinion, there. And I don't know, I just can't see Mickie James just wrestling in the NWA, if I'm being honest. I think she's too talented to work that few amount of matches. Could you see that happening?
Absolutely, especially I think Mickie James was talking about the NWA having their own women's pay-per-view or something. So this could be a partnership where she works a few dates for Impact and then some of the Impact stars will be on the NWA show.
Yes. Yeah, that's a very good point there, of course, because NWA do not currently have the roster they need for that show. So Mickie James wouldn't surprise me at all. If it is a male star who's coming in as the second name, it does make it sound like it's female, but if it is a male who's coming in for another promotion, I don't know who I could see it being, honestly. I mean, perhaps Lance Archer. He's not, had the greatest showing in AEW. And, him being an absolute monster in Impact, tearing things apart, that could be a big deal. I don't know. Anybody else in All Elite Wrestling?
They're getting a lot. Had as Phantasmo a few weeks ago, so there could be a New Japan star also. But
it could, yeah.
I don't know. It's a reason to watch Slammiversary anyway because we don't have a clue who it's going to be. So it's definitely a key factor.
Yeah, and of course, this is the second year in a row they've done this for Slammiversary, created hype among a variety of different names which could show up on the show. And then, of course, last year quite a few did. This year, at least two will. Of course, Kazuchika Okada from New Japan Pro Wrestling was rumored a few months ago. Now, Will Ospreay's injury may have changed plans there, but Okada lost to Shingo, of course. He lost his championship opportunity. So it's entirely possible. Perhaps Okada is making his way to the States now. I haven't actually been following. Do you know if he's got an opponent for Wrestle Grand Slam?
I don't believe so. No, I think he's just in some sort of mixed tag or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he could well then fly back over for the event. There might still be quarantine issues, though, I believe, in Japan. But it'll be interesting to see what happens. Of course, Slammiversary is taking place next month. Limited attendance. I believe all tickets are already sold out for that show. But next thing I wanted to move on to is Monday Night Raw. And we talk about this a lot. We talk about Raw a lot. A lot of time, it frustrates us, to say the least. This week's show was good for the most part. The Money in the Bank, the Money in the Bank qualifying matches were good. They chose the right 3 winners, in my opinion. And they're seemingly setting up to, make a new star in the match, which I think is fantastic. Of course, first event in a few months for WWE where they'll have a crowd, first time they'll have a full capacity crowd since Elimination Chamber 2020. But this week on Raw, we also saw something else, and that was that Pippa Niven's new name is officially Dewdrop, as it actually said. We thought it was Dewdrop. It's Dewdrop, it's pronounced. I don't know how it's pronounced that way, but it is. But I didn't have a massive issue with the way they presented this. As she was, of course, Pippa Niven was asked her name. She was going to say Pippa Niven. And then, of course, Eva Marie interrupted and then decided to call it Dewdrop. But it's just a weird storyline. I still, I'm not a fan of it, I'm being honest. Your thoughts?
As we know from last week, I love this storyline because I think Eva Marie knows Pippa Niven's potential, like in kayfabe. She knows her potential and she knows that she can elevate her to the top. And she knows that herself she's not the best wrestler in the world or even a good wrestler. So she's using Pippa Niven to do her dirty work for her, and I just love it. And eventually it's going to turn on Pippa Niven saying, look, I'm the star here, and boop Eva Marie, but I don't want that to happen for a long time yet.
It seemingly happened, though, on Raw this week. Straight away, she cost them the match. Like, why are they doing this early? Maybe Eva gets her to trust her again, and then eventually that happens on the line. I'm presuming that's what they're doing. It's surely not splitting them this early. That's unnecessarily calling a Dewdrop. But another thing which happened on Raw this week, which infuriated viewers, was Nikki Cross came out with a new gimmick, and she's now a superhero. It just looks stupid. Straight up, it looks stupid. It was Nikki Cross's idea. She's been planning for months. She pitched it herself. She got an artist to mock up what she wanted to look like. And maybe without the mask, it wouldn't look as bad. But it just looks like an absolute joke. I can't take the gimmick seriously at all. It's there was nothing wrong with her old one. Well, actually, that was nothing special. But there was nothing wrong with the original one, Insanity. That was really, really good. She played it perfectly. And now it's just watching this stuff. I don't even think this will connect with kids. And just think about it. We've spoken about this so many times before. Most kids aren't even allowed to watch WWE nowadays, right? The amount of kid viewers, it's so low, right? That the argument, oh, well, they did this to, please the kids. It's stupid. And they're such a small percentage. And honestly, I think Ricochet doing all, flying around the ring, all that stuff, that would, bring them in a lot more than Nikki Cross wearing some superhero outfit. And I think this is a perfect example of why not all wrestlers should have creative control. What did you think of it? Do you disagree?
Oh, no, I agree with you. It was purely stupid. But anyway, I could see, because she was Team Alexa Bliss, they could use Bliss and then manipulate her to be the ultra good bad guy to her evilness, and that's something got to do with Bliss controlling Cross. Anyway, I kind of let it slide, but I just, it's very, very stupid. Especially 2 weeks ago, yeah, me too. Like, I'm not saying it's good. Like, I don't like Dex either, but just make it make somewhat sense rather than just she beat 2 champions and then she dresses up as a superhero the next week. You know what I mean?
It really is. It's infuriating to see someone with so much talent get a gimmick like that, in a way. But it's listen, she's getting TV time, which she deserves at least. But the Alexa gimmick, we'll get into this in more detail during the Hell in the Cell review part of the show. But it's awful now. It had so good potential. Alexa does the role fantastically, right? Nothing directed towards Alexa here. She pulls it off fantastically. But the issue is the hypnotizing. It's just, I hate it. It doesn't work. And people say Undertaker did the same thing. On a couple of occasions, Undertaker did not hypnotizing or anything, but he did some things which were, unexplainable completely. But for the most part, everything Undertaker did, you could justify as, oh, well, that was, he planned this earlier on. He set it up. He got somebody set it up for him and then set the pyro off or whatever. Like, that's what does it. It's not like, oh, magic. It's, it's deceiving reality, essentially. And that's what professional wrestling is. Whereas mind control and everything, unless, I said this, I believe, in the review this week, unless Nia Jax now ends up turning on Shayna and it was all a trick or whatever, and she was just acting, pretending she was hypnotized, then this is just absolutely awful. But we'll get more into this later on. Somebody who could be heading over to Raw, though, is Big E. According to WrestleVote, Big E will be heading over to Raw in the upcoming draft. Currently they're discussing this idea. And the idea would basically be to put him back in the New Day again, but have him as the main single star by far, not like it was before. Have Big E as the single star while Kofi and Xavier are the tag team. And this, the idea of this is just to give Raw a fresh babyface who's on top of the division. Big E's fantastic. This would be freshening it up a bit, but I don't think this would really solve any long-term issues whatsoever.
I like it, and I think they're kind of planting the seeds now with the whole New Day storyline with Bobby Lashley, I believe, for E to come across and be the one to take the title off Lashley. And I think Big E definitely needs to be on Raw. Like, if you want Big E to be a proper main event star, he needs to be on a brand opposite to Roman, because he can only go so far with Roman, like being on top, because unless he's planned to be the guy that beats him, I don't see it happening at the moment, where he's currently been flipping and flopping, and then the whole Aleister Black thing kind of put a dot in his momentum, unfortunately, because he was meant to have the feud of Black, and then Black obviously got released. But I think this will definitely be the fresh up Raw needs and Big E needs, and Raw needs baby faces at the moment, especially in the main event scene, because Drew is not in the main event scene at the moment. I kind of like the story they're telling with Drew, but I'm sure we'll get onto that a bit later. And I think it's definitely a fresh face. We need that in Raw.
Yeah, I do, and I think they need to introduce several, if I'm being honest, too. And they're going to be, but I'll get into that again in a second. But I don't know really if this, after one feud, it's stale again. Like they need a lot more. They either need a lot more talent, or they need to merge the brands. We talked about it a few weeks ago, but it shows it becoming stale so quickly now. Who do you have to just mention about Roman Reigns? Of course, him and Big E being on the same brand. Big E's not going to get a world title. But who do you actually think is going to take the title off Reigns now? Who is there to do it?
I don't think there's anybody at Roman's level, unfortunately, that can be a believable person to take the belt off him, unless to really build someone up between now and WrestleMania. I can't see anybody taking it off him. I could possibly Jey Uso, because the way they're building Jey Uso, as main event Uso, and like the Usos could turn on Roman in kind of like a 2-on-1 situation. That's how he loses it. But I'm only saying Jey Uso because it makes sense, not necessarily because he's the right guy. It's just the way the story's going at the moment. The only way you can see is Jey Uso winning it. But I don't know, possibly Edge for one last run. But it's very hard to think about who would take the belt off Roman and us be happy that with the direction it was going in.
The worst part about this is, right? Well, not the worst part. If they had the wrestlers for it, it'd be great. But this Reigns reign is likely going to last. So actually, go past Mania. It's likely going to go quite a long time, and you're going to run out of opponents real quick. Well, they have. They've already run out. And going into SummerSlam, they're going to bring in John Cena, Survivor Series, seemingly The Rock. Going into Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, who is there? And of course, maybe they can move someone over. Maybe they can move Drew over from Raw to SmackDown and have him face Reigns at Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. But they're running out of people quick and fast. But they're introducing some new people, it seems. this past Friday night on SmackDown, after SmackDown was taped, Karrion Kross and Bronson Reed both had main roster quote-unquote tryouts. A bit confusing as to why they did this, considering, they could just watch NXT, but no. They're seemingly ignoring the point why NXT exists, and they did this instead. Anyway, they seemingly went well, as on Monday at a main event taping, both men made their main roster debuts. First off, why are they doing this on main event, right? It's not like, oh, this is, a way to connect them with some main roster fans. Nobody watched the main event. No casual fan watched the main event at all. It's on Hulu, I believe, in the States. It's not even available in the UK for like a month off until after. I don't see the point in why they did this. And again, I spoke about this last week. I was not a fan of I was not a fan of the Fatal 5-Way. I was not a fan of the booking of the Fatal 5-Way takeover. And because it was a perfect way for them to take the title off Cross. But instead, they just, made the four top challengers look bad. And now look, Cross looking like he's going to be getting called up. So what is he going to do? He's just going to relinquish the title. It is infuriating. He won't. No way will he drop it before SummerSlam or whatever, Cross. But I think both Cross and Reed will be officially then drafted to the main roster during the draft after SummerSlam. Do you reckon this will be the case, or do you have any other theories?
I hate that them two are the ones being called up simply because they're both the top champions in the company, and it's just going to be taking the belt off both men so quick, not going to make any sense. And looking back now, I did say I liked the match of the Fatal 5-Way and I didn't mind Cross winning, but it's the perfect way to keep him looking strong and having NXT progress slowly. But now you're just going to put a big halt in it, and it's going to feel last year's the exact same situation with Cross unfortunately getting injured, and then Balor had to fill the role. But with the way you're doing it this time, like you're going to go backwards rather than go forwards, because you're going to have to give the belt to like an Adam Cole or a Kyle O'Reilly, and it would have made so much more sense to just do that in a match rather than just having them not beat Cross for it.
Yeah. I think what they're going to do is they'll probably have Gargano versus Cross at TakeOver. Well, they probably do it before TakeOver. So that is
Probably
quite a while
the
away.
Bash at the.
Oh, okay.
The Bash
that quick. Oh.
Yeah, the Bash is 2 weeks time. So.
But Johnny's really over as a face now, and I don't mind that at all. The heel act was good during the pandemic, but it was starting to get stale a little bit, and he's unmatched as a babyface. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see that match. And I prefer to see it in a packed venue, to be honest. But oh well. TakeOver might not even be in a packed venue. It'll probably be in the Capitol Wrestling Center still. But we're going to move on now to the WWE main roster pay-per-view, which happened over the weekend. And oh boy, some of this stuff on this show was not good at all. Some of it was fantastic. The overall match quality was really solid, but the booking and endings to matches were, a bit hit and go. But the show started off on a real high note as Bianca Belair defeated Bayley inside the Hell in a Cell structure to retain her SmackDown Women's Championship in what was a hell of a match. We shouldn't really be, surprised anymore with Bianca Belair and Bayley putting on great matches. But yeah, it was one really enjoyable way to start the show. Got the fake fans up and running a little bit, got you interested in it. What do you think?
It's a fantastic match. Both women worked well. Bayley, 2 awesome Hell in a Cell matches in under a year. She's a fantastic wrestler. I love the finish. It was very, very unique with the Bianca Belair's kind of burning hammer on top of the ladder. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think this is leading to another Bank 3 match at SummerSlam, possibly.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd be be down for that. The last one was fantastic. The one thing I liked is as well, Bianca Belair over the last, since her debut in NXT, essentially, has been using her hair to her advantage. And of course, in this match, because you're not allowed to pull hair, she can use it, but you can't use it. But in this match, because there was no rules, Bayley could use it. She tied it up, she did everything, she used it to her, Bianca's biggest strength, arguably, is her hair, and it was used against her in this match. And I enjoyed this a lot. Made sense. Great start to the show. And then to follow this up, Seth Rollins defeated Cesaro. Of course, we said at the time the Cesaro push wasn't going to last very long, sadly. But Cesaro did get the match with Reigns, which I'm going to be honest, I didn't expect you. That's a babyface, a babyface challenger who he got instead of just facing somebody else again. So I'm happy they did that. Seth Rollins gave Cesaro his WrestleMania win at Mania, and now at Hell in a Cell, Seth Rollins got his win back. I mean, what else can you say between these two? It wasn't as good as the WrestleMania match, but it was a real good match nevertheless. Did you enjoy it?
Fantastic match, and I think Cesaro's push is still coming. Like he's going to get to the IC level possibly. I think this is set simply just one here because WWE don't want to do too much before the fans are coming back so soon. So this is just to keep the ball rolling for Seth and Cesaro till the fans come back, and possibly both men will be in the Money in Bank match anyhow.
We've said though for years and years, Cesaro's going to be getting a push this year. It's never ended up happening. It did happen at WrestleMania for a couple of months then, but I think the best he's going to get now is being a challenger for the IC title again. I don't. I think the push is going to end fairly quickly, and I think he's going to get thrown back in a new tag team before the year is over. Maybe even thrown back with Shinsuke again. Disappointing stuff. But he also works really well in the tag team, so it's not terrible, but he has the talent to be a world champion. Well, there's a lot of people in WWE with the ability to be a world champion, and Cesaro sadly doesn't have the charisma and the promo skills essentially to be necessarily a top star. I still think they could get away with it more than they have done, but obviously they haven't wanted to go down that route. But to follow this matchup, Alexa Bliss took on Shayna Baszler. And wow, this was a mess. The match itself was fine, right? But the in-ring element of the match was fine. But Shayna looked weaker than she has in recent times. And then mid-match, Alexa Bliss distracts Shayna Baszler by hypnotizing Nia Jax. What is there to say? It feels like an insult to watch this stuff. Like, nobody watches WWE or any wrestling promotion to see some hypnotization done to win a match. It's what people laugh at WWE for doing, and it's what can I say? You can't prove them wrong when it shows this shit. I mean, it is. What are your thoughts on it before I go off on one?
I'll just switch the off one. I'll go off on one. This is shite, man. Where's Bray Wyatt? Why am I watching the Alexa Bliss screaming at people and not seeing Bray Wyatt back on my TV? I don't like it at all. Shayna Baszler losing clean to Bliss on pay-per-view. Wouldn't be against it 2 years ago because Bliss is higher up, but now, nah. And the whole hypnosis thing, I'm obviously just doing that to find out a way to get Alexa Bliss to have matches in front of crowds without doing the whole camera cuts and the whole works first. So they're just trying to find a different way, and this isn't it. I just keep Alexa Bliss out of the ring, have her as a manager to Bray Wyatt, perfect in that role. To have your own identity as a single star in this character just doesn't suit the product. I know people say, "Oh, the Undertaker was kind of the same." He wasn't. When Undertaker never used his hypnosis to win matches. Undertaker just won matches and he lost matches clean and stuff, and he'd only ever shoot lightning. It wasn't necessarily like the whole control your mind stuff. Like, even Undertaker had limits. This could be anything.
Yeah, and then even then, like, you could say, he got some of the production team to plan it for him or something. Yeah. Just getting ahead of his opponents. This you can't justify at all. And this is what I'll say, right? The issue with this Alexa Bliss gimmick is not the performance by her. The performance by her, as I said before, is being really great. She's suited the role really well. And then you mentioned a second ago that you don't think that in the single star role it works for her in this gimmick. I actually think it's fine. I think that she could be, a top competitor in the women's division with this gimmick. I don't think it's the gimmick, essentially, which is the issue. I think this gimmick had so much potential. I think this could take her to a new height if they did it right. But the fact is, they didn't do it right. And instead of her, seeming a bit crazy, like, Rosemary or Sue Young and Impact did, instead they started doing, and mind you, Impact have had their own share of issues with that storyline as well. I'm not praising that, essentially. But Alexa Bliss, with this all hypnosis, hypnotizing her opponents, it makes no sense. Like, you're meant to be, your disbelief is meant to be suspended. I've said it so many times over and over and over again. And you can't justify it. The only way you could justify it is by saying, oh, Nia Jax pretended that just to turn on Shayna. But they're not going to go down that route. If they do go down that route, then I apologize. Fantastic booking. But I don't think that is the route they'll be going down. And instead, what's the limits for now for Alexa? She could just come in, she could win the men's title if she wanted to. Walk in, get Bobby Lashley to lay on the ground, pin him. It's ludicrous. The Shayna Baszler doll stuff was bad enough as it is. But at least at that point, you could be suspended, disbelief, somebody moved the doll there, whatever. It still makes Shayna look bad that she's scared of a doll, but oh well, right? It's not great, but it's nowhere near as bad as this. Literally hypnotizing someone at ringside. And it brings the issue as well up. Why don't you just hypnotize Shayna and then pin her? Is there some, moral, there's a line that she doesn't want to cross something? I don't know. I don't care. This is just, if this is what The Fiend has when he comes back as well, and suddenly The Fiend's able to, mind control, this is just awful. When crowds return next week, well, not next week, sorry, a few weeks' time, this is going to get booed out of the building. It's going to be absolutely awful. And if the what you said about that being a way for this gimmick to work with, crowds, instead of them doing cinematic stuff, and this is not going to work with crowds, if that's what they thought, then they've made a big mistake, and it's going to backfire really, really quickly. With CM Punk chants, this is awful chants. I do not understand remotely who thought this was a good idea. Perhaps it was the WWE writer who didn't know the name of Bobby Lashley. It came out earlier today. I'm not sure where the report exactly came from yet. I haven't actually properly done research into it, but I've just seen it flash up a couple of minutes ago. Sums the writing team up, doesn't it, Karl?
Absolutely. If you don't know the name of your top champion, how are we expecting these people to write good shows? Like, even we do a better job at this stage of writing. Like, it's just awful.
I could have done a better job than them writing several years ago. All right, I in my spare time I do write shows often, and I'm telling you right now, right, my storyline's 10 billion times better than this long term. It really does get on my nerves. But moving on to something slightly better, well, I say slightly, massively better compared to that. Sami Zayn defeated Kevin Owens in a 12-minute match. Everyone seemed to love this. I thought it was good. Right? I thought it was really good, as always. I didn't seem to love it as much as some people were saying, but thought it was, a solid match between them two. I would have gotten a bit more time. Kevin Owens, sold the rib injury from, of course, Commander Aziz really well. Not rib injury, sorry. Throat injury or whatever it was, to his breathing. He sold it really well. What do you think of the match?
Fantastic, but I love the match too. But like, I've been seeing these guys have unbelievable matches for like 10 years, so it's not surprising. You just put these two together, it's going to be fantastic. It's amazing. I'm watching them 10 years fighting, and I'm still not sick of them having matches. And I think I heard a rumor, not too sure, but Kevin Owens is taking a bit of time off now.
Yeah.
After this loss. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a kayfabe thing. It's the reason for it's kayfabe, which is a bit weird. And they want to give him a bit of time off in kayfabe. They want to give the character a break, I guess. But he's been working his ass off for several years now. I mean, then again, he did take a bit of time off like last year, but still, The dude been busting his ass for so long, giving him a bit of a break. All good. And the pop when he does return, like however long it is, probably in a month or two, when fans return,
Possibly
that'd be great.
Possibly over the Raw as well. Freshen up the baby faces even more for Raw.
Yeah.
Like,
And because
he definitely a fresh face.
they should have Keith Lee coming back soon. Well, I don't know about that. He's now trademarked his own name, and WWE have counted it. So God knows what's happening there. I have the impression that's just a bit of a coincidence. I think that he probably will be returning soon, and we'll find out then why he's been gone. But in the semi-main event, essentially, Charlotte Flair defeated Rhea Ripley, but she defeated her because Rhea Ripley got disqualified, and then Rhea retained her title. And Rhea's justification for doing this was, well, this is exactly what you would do, so I just played you at your own game. If they're working towards turning Rhea heel, right, and they're doing it slowly, I don't have a massive issue with this. I don't think they should turn her heel, but they already have so many, female heels as it is. But I didn't hate the finish, right? I didn't hate the finish because there was at least some reasoning behind it, unlike a lot of times when they've done it before. But still, why didn't you do it on Raw or something? Why do you do this on a pay-per-view? I say it over and over and over again. You should never do disqualifications on a pay-per-view. It turns fans away. That's meant to be the big storyline clashes, not just, a disqualification and a big crash in the storyline. The match itself was good. I was really, really enjoying it, but yeah, it was a disappointing ending. It wasn't illogical. It made sense, but I was not a fan of a disqualification happening on a pay-per-view, as I always say. What do you think?
Hated it. Good match. The women obviously both fantastic wrestlers. 2 reasons I hated it. 1, I watched this great match and it was a waste of my time because I meant nothing. 2, why is this a disqualification when in over 20 years of wrestling they've always put each other through announce tables and singles matches, and it's just no bother. But in this instance, because they wanted this story to be told to get disqualified, it was a DQ. So the thing I hate about WWE is the rules aren't consistent. They just make them up as they go along. Because I've seen people hit up that announce table all the time. Randy Orton does it every freaking match. He puts someone on the announce table. So why? It's because you just use the lid.
Yeah. So in fairness to them, the rules are right. If you throw someone or whatever, throw someone or put someone on a weapon, or through a weapon, a table or whatever, that's fine. But mind you, they've done disqualifications for putting people through a normal table before, which doesn't make much sense. I mean, if you get it out, that's another thing. But the difference here was she grabbed the lid and she hit her with it. And that's obviously then you're using that as a weapon, and instead of putting her against the weapon, you are using the weapon against her in fairness. So I didn't have a big issue with that, but again, my thought on it as soon as it finished was the exact same as what you just said. I just sat through this great match for 14 minutes just for that to happen and for it to end. Also, Charlotte Flair said something big was going to happen during the match. Nothing did. I guess plans change. But she hyped it up, and then there was a bit of a letdown. But I'm hoping now they continue the storyline to Money in the Bank, purely so they can do this match with fans. As you know, these two were meant to have a match at WrestleMania 36 and didn't because, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. So for them now to get a match in front of a full capacity crowd, that'd be awesome for them, and they would definitely deserve it. Now, moving on to the main event. Bobby Lashley took on Drew McIntyre, and if Drew McIntyre lost, that would be his last chance in order to go for the WWE Championship while Lashley has the belt. So off the bat, this was a really good match, right? It was a really good match all along, brutal. What you want to see in a Hell in a Cell match. Both men giving it everything. But, should this surprise you? For I don't know how many consecutive years now it's been that somebody else has entered the cell during the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. But the entire point of the gimmick was once again ruined. What basically happened was Lashley, was down and out. McIntyre, whatever, getting ready to throw the Claymore on, and this would happen. I can't actually remember now. How did the ref? I can't remember how the ref went down, but the referee went down anyway.
The referee I think he got hit off with a chair and he went out of the ring, and then MVP, I think then Drew hit Lashley with a Claymore, and then the other ref on the side of the cage, Drew called him in to count the pin, but then MVP got in as that was happening.
Yeah, he got in, then MVP, of course, held him back. McIntyre then took him out a little bit, and then Lashley won with a roll-up pin. I don't have as much. The entire wrestling community is constantly going on about their issues, right, with matches. It was said about the Tyler Bate versus A-Kid match when we gave that 5 stars. Somebody said, how can a match of 5 stars when there's a roll-up finish? Like, traditionally, that happened all the time. It's, it's logical. I don't see the issue with it. In this case, it was bad. But the entire thing now that's going around is, a match is bad if it ends with a roll-up pin. That's ludicrous. But, excuse, Jake said here, using the cell on Raw and SmackDown has lowered the prestige of it for me. I'd be fine if it went away for a couple of years. I'd be fine if the pay-per-view went away forever, and then they just brought the cell out when, it's time to bring the cell out. As the fact that they let people into the cell, it kills the gimmick. And it was a really, really good gimmick for so many years. It was, I used to get so excited for cell matches. Even WrestleMania 32, Shane McMahon versus Undertaker. I was beyond excited for that match. And of course, they actually ended up going through the cell, through the wall of the cell. Shane then went off it, and it felt like such a dangerous structure. But yeah, they've ruined it. They've absolutely ruined the gimmick, and there's no saving from here. There's no saving the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view from here in my eyes. I mean, I guess in a year's time, when maybe they could wait until October 2022 and do the normal time then, so they would have been 18 months and then do it right. But the issue with Hell in a Cell is no matter where they put it, it's always in between 2 major shows, right? Well, within a few months between 2 major shows. So no big feud's going to be ended for the most part during Hell in a Cell, because they happen for the most part in the big pay-per-views. So that it's going to make no sense regardless. I think they should just scrap the pay-per-view. What do you think, Karl?
Yeah, no, I hate gimmick pay-per-views. A few of them work. Money in the Bank, I believe, works. And Extreme Rules, stuff like that. But having big matches, like Hell in a Cell is meant to be for instance, Mick Foley and Triple H in 2000, those men hated each other. They were battling all over the arena. They were killing each other. So the only way this rivalry could be contained was Hell in a Cell, and that match felt so important. So the fact that now it's just, let's have Bobby and Drew in Hell in a Cell, but that's actually a good feud. We'll use Bianca and Bayley. Both women are amazing. That match is Hell in a Cell worthy. Like, the feud hasn't escalated that much to be in Hell in a Cell. So I think it needs to be out for the killer feud.
And even the Drew and Lashley thing, that made no sense to it in the Cell in the aspect of they didn't build it for that. The feud been going on for so long. They should have planned months earlier, okay, we'll end this feud at Hell in a Cell. And if they did that, it would have been great. And they should have done it cleanly or whatever. Or doesn't even necessarily have to be clean. Just don't let anyone in the cell, right? Maybe, I don't know, it's difficult. It's a difficult way to get around it. But the Hell in a Cell gimmick shouldn't be using, some heel heat thing. Or if it does, it should be like once every decade. And then it would be, atomic heel heat. Not every single year, because nobody cares anymore. As Jake previously said, we had 4 cell matches across the weekend. None of them deserve to be in the cell. Well, Drew and Lashley would have if it was built better. But that's that. Disappointing again. And Jake said here, Seth versus Cesaro and Sammy versus KO would have made more sense as Hell in a Cell matches. I completely agree there. Both would have But they need to build them more though. Still, like it needs to be built over weeks and weeks and weeks as like preparing, like you said, battling around the arena, showing that you can't contain them all. I like they've been doing on NXT recently, like NXT tend to do around War Games, and War Games is a bit slightly easier to justify as having one pay-per-view a year for. But still, I'm not a fan of these gimmick pay-per-views. Money in the Bank, because it's obviously a planned thing. I'm fine with that one. Apart from that, I'm not a fan of these at all. Just, it would make for it more exciting too, is if every pay-per-view had some big gimmick match or whatever, but you don't know what it is until, Raw 3-4 weeks beforehand, or SmackDown 3-4 weeks beforehand. For example, Backlash will have a Hell in a Cell match this year, or a lot of them are gimmick ones. No Mercy, I know it no longer exists, but No Mercy will have an Extreme Rules match this year. Or, it's stuff like that. Royal Rumble, so that's the other one, which is completely fine as a gimmick, a pay-per-view. And Elimination Chamber too. They're the three. Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber, Royal Rumble are the three I have no issues with. The rest, make them, blank name pay-per-views, or introduce a new gimmick match or whatever, but something which doesn't need to depend on some big nuclear feud. And then in these, empty pay-per-views in between, for example, Backlash, like I just said a minute ago, you can then bring the gimmick matches in for that and bring the ones in to suit the feud. And it's not even that, like steel cage matches, which is why I liked it the way AEW did it last year. Meaning Cody and Wardlow. Even though that wasn't, a killer feud, but at least they built up to be a big thing. Steel cage matches have lost all prestige. It was meant to be, a big way to, end a feud when there was nothing, there was no, you couldn't do a street fight, anything like that. It had to be done within, the four ropes, the four sides of the ring. Sorry. It's just, I don't know. I miss those days. I really do, Carl. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. Just nothing's important anymore. In terms of match type, nothing's important. Nothing feels big. Like, as you said, when I was growing up as a kid, when someone used to say, you're in Hell in a Cell, I was like, oh, shit, this is about to get big now. And, like, for instance, I remember the Jericho-Michaels feud. They didn't need a ladder pay-per-view. They were like, they had a ladder match at the end because Jericho said, right, you can pick the match. And, of course, Shawn Michaels, especially with ladder matches, say, I'll pick a ladder match. And Jericho's face dropped. Like, you're not going to get this now. It's like, nowadays, like, I challenge you to ladder match, but we'll wait in July because that's when it has to happen. It makes no sense. It's just stupid. And especially, it takes all the prestige out. Because then you're not going to get a real, for instance, the Reigns and Roman feud, and the Sun and SmackDown, that was kind of built, but they rushed it. If this was kind of slowly going on since about February, and then we got Hell in a Cell, it's a bigger deal. But the fact is, like, oh crap, Reigns needs a Hell in a Cell match. Ray, go on, beat up Dominic.
It's the WWE, right? They're constantly thinking, oh, why isn't our booking working? Well, we need bigger guys. We need younger guys. Maybe that might be a very small element, but it's not a big one at all. The reason purely is long-term booking. The fact the fans don't watch the product and like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen now. It's like, oh, this will probably, end in DQ. This might be a good match, or maybe I'll watch this. Watch this match as it looks like it'll be good, and I'll just, skip the rest of the show. And when you're watching a wrestling show just because you think, oh, this match might be good, and you're not invested in any of the storylines, that's when you know something is wrong with your product. Because you're meant to be invested. You're meant to think it's real almost when you're watching. But sadly, as of late, that has not been the emotion a lot of fans have been getting when watching the main roster in WWE. I mean, of course, Sorry, you go.
No, I was going to say it's very, very stupid. Long-term booking now, like, I'll harp back to it. The Michaels and Jericho feud in 2008, they only wrestled each other 4 times in 6, 7 months. And nowadays, long-term storytelling is having a match every week, every pay-per-view. That's not long-term storytelling. That's just having the same match over and over again. Where I'll harp back to the Michaels and Jericho one because it's arguing the best of all time. That match was all built from Michaels beating Ric Flair, Batista having a problem with it, and then Jericho still idolizing Shawn Michaels because he was his favorite wrestler as a kid, and you could see he didn't want to believe Michaels' line about the knee injury, and it just was going on and on for months and kept building and building and building. And nowadays it's the Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins feud went on for ages, and I eventually just forgot how the feud even started. I think
Yeah.
Ray congratulated Seth on their new kid, and then he took his eye out the next week, and then that's how the feud started. And there's no reason for it, like, at all.
It's beyond ridiculous. Like, listen, it was the case with the storyline you just mentioned, Ray and Seth. If you said anything about it being, oh, this is too long, the comment section is now full of people saying, oh, you wanted more long-term storytelling. WWE are giving you this. If AEW are doing this, you praise it. No, not at all. That is not long-term storytelling, like you just said, right? Long-term storytelling, it's over time, but it does not mean you have a match every week. It does not mean that you have to be on the show together every week. And you can have storylines within storylines and then leading back to the storyline. Usually more meaning behind stuff. And I'm really hoping that whenever the change of leadership happens in WWE, that happens. But honestly, I don't see it happening. I don't know if I see it happening at all. As Shane's been, involved in the booking a lot as of late, and we've not. Nothing's improved. Nothing improved remotely. Matches have been better over the past year, yes, but the actual stories have been as useless as ever. It's tiring almost. But hopefully things will get on the rise now once fans return and fans start to boycott shows a little bit more. But I always think, one last note, I was thinking about this earlier today, right? 2016, after WrestleMania, and even on the build to WrestleMania, the storylines, the actual WrestleMania card for WrestleMania 32, I know wasn't that great, but there's a variety of reasons why that was the case. But after WrestleMania, I remember everyone had different theories about what was going to happen. The storytelling all made sense. It all linked up great. You had, of course, that fantastic Miz IC title reign. You had the Shield. So Roman Reigns was holding the title, had some great matches against AJ Styles. And then Seth Rollins returned, messed it all up. And then Dean Ambrose was like, wait a second, nope, I'm going to crash this all and I'm going to cash in this Money in the Bank briefcase. And everyone was like, is this going to happen? Is this not going to happen? There were so many different theories on the internet, and it did end up happening. And it was just fantastic. I remember just, jumping out of my seat when Rollins returned. And nowadays, if you return, it's just, on Raw, for, no good reason or whatever. It's tiring. It's absolutely tiring. Do you reckon the product's going to get any better anytime soon, or do you think this downward spiral is going to continue?
It'll get better eventually. It's not going to stay this bad forever, but I will say this is probably the worst I've seen WWE. And then, I don't know, I'm watching wrestling since my whole life, basically. This is the worst consecutive runs of Raw I've ever witnessed. Like, there's always, even in the bad times, there's always that one glimmer of hope. And this time it is RK Bro, but even that's not enough to save a 3-hour show. But I do think usually WrestleMania be the refresh. I will give WWE the benefit of the doubt, where I think they're kind of waiting for the fans to come back to do the refresh, and they're just kind of keeping stuff ticking for this period, just so when the fans come back, then they'll start doing the refresh. But I will say Raw was fantastic this week. It's a lot better. Every match had stakes, and I think we're on the uphill now. And as you said, some of the participants for that Money in the Bank match are actually very, very good. Like, that match is looking. I know our people might argue, oh, there's not enough star power, so who really cares? But this will make a star, and that's the whole purpose of Money in the Bank, is to make a star. And interesting to see who's on SmackDown tomorrow night for the Money in the Bank match. But I think Riddle, Ricochet, Morrison, them three alone will do amazing stuff in that match. And I love Drew's new character as well. I forgot to mention, but Drew's whole new thing was he obviously had the Great Hell in a Cell match. He lost, whatever. Then he had a match against Riddle, and he's like, right, this is my one chance to get back to the top. And I love this thing where Drew's mind is, I won't give up, but his body's given up on him for all these months of battles and stuff he's had. I think that's a good story, and to continue doing stories like that with detail, so would be beyond the uphill. But it's these, as you said, long-term storytelling is not having a match. It's having the finer details make sense. And I love the storyline they're doing with Drew, where take him out of the main event, freshen him up a little bit. Because I would be afraid if they kept pushing Drew the way they were pushing him, he definitely would have been booed. Not doubt in my mind, he would have been booed. So they need to refresh, take him out of that a little bit, and refresh him up and build him back up again.
Sadly, I don't. Even though that would be fantastic, I don't think that's what they'll do. I think they're gonna have him win the triple threat match, and then have him win or fail forward, whatever it is, the last chance match, and then win Money in the Bank. And I think he's gonna get booed, start getting booed. Then he shouldn't be getting booed. That is partly on the fans these days. I guess low attention span.
Yeah, no, I love Drew, and Drew's was amazing all week. What you want is a babyface that can wrestle, that can talk, and it's believable. Drew's all those things. So why are you booing a person that's literally carried Raw? Like, oh, he's been champion for too long. So I'm happy he's been champion for as long as he has. He's one of the nicest dudes you meet in wrestling. Fantastic in ring, and we actually have a main eventer who can properly have 5-star matches every week. So why you complain?
And they had him drop the title to the right guy at the right time too. So I with some people, that's why fans start turning on them, because it's simply because of the booking. But with Drew's case, it wasn't. They booked it well. But hey, that's the way this is going. It's tiring talking about this every single week now. My faith is loosening, but I have a little bit of hope that when the crowds return, so will the quality in WWE. But at the same time, I have a feeling now, what's going to be the case is we justify that as, oh, well, they're waiting for fans to return. And once fans return, oh, they're just waiting for SummerSlam. Once SummerSlam happens, oh, they're just waiting for the draft. Oh, they're just waiting for the Royal Rumble. Oh, they're just waiting for WrestleMania. Oh, they're waiting for after WrestleMania. I feel like that's going to... And then after WrestleMania, then finally people will be like, oh, wait. Same old. They'll crap on it for a couple of months. And SummerSlam will come around, and it's the same cycle all over again. It happens every year. But let's at least have some hope. At least NXT's been good recently. At least NXT's been back on the rise again. Really good show this week, as was last week. But anyway, thank you for listening, everybody. It's been great having you here. We are here every single Thursday night, 7 p.m. British summertime. So, let us know. We're live on YouTube. You can comment. We'll show you comments, all that stuff. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next week.